So before we are going to create the different surfaces, we have to prep the profile a little bit further. And for example, this curve is basically at the center of a button. I would like this curve to be here. So that means I have to rotate it over 45 degrees. And an easy way to do this is, because this whole sketch is very symmetrical, I'm going to move the center point to here, because then I can rotate in relationship to the center point by 45 degrees. So I go to the pivot point mode, press the Alt key, and simply reset that pivot point, as you can see. Not a big problem. And then I can go into rotate. And currently I look through the x-axis, so I have to type in 45, 0, 0 for 45 degree for x, and 0 degree and 0 degree for y and z. Press enter. And that actually went the opposite way. Okay, then I type in minus 45 there. Okay, so now with this profile there, what I can do is go to surfaces and go to Revolve X-axis. That is the Revolve axis we want to use. So I can click on this arc, and currently my axis is also set correctly because I preset the pivot point by hand. And with this done, I could then go ahead and go to the MultiDraft tool. Actually, you could, for example, in this case, ignore those rings actually we sketched. I'm going to hide them. So you see that they might be good as a visual indicator, but you don't really need them necessarily for working, because in Alias 2011, the multi-surface draft tool only works on surfaces, but by having created this button arc top surface, we now have a surface where we could sample the edges from. So you could click on the multi-draft surface, x-axis for the direction, and length maybe 2, and then you can click an edge, pick the correct orientation, so x-axis, but which direction. And you see that this way I created now my surfaces for the button, basically, by only sampling the edges from the Revolve surface we created. And you can also see now that here is the thicker green line, which means that is the surface edge. And that is also true now for example, the surface draft. So in this case, it's actually smarter to create those extrusion surfaces by sampling it from the Revolve surface, because we will share this edge among all 3 objects instead of using the rings I created to create new surfaces from there. And in addition, this is also in relationship to each other. You can see that the extrusion surfaces are driven through the construction history with the surface draft tool from the Revolve surface. Now at this point, I can turn on my grid. I have to create the side surfaces. And for this, I could use again the draft tool. And as a heads up, in case you use 2011, you have a second tool under the icon you see here. But in my version, I can use the MultiDraft surface tool directly on curves. And I have it set to 5 millimeters because from here to there it's roughly 5 millimeters. I can flip the direction, and there I have now the side surfaces. And then from this point on, I could go ahead, create my intersection curves, and then start trimming all my surfaces. So for example, I'm going to select those 3 surfaces at once, then click on intersect, and then I can click on my 4 different cut surfaces. And then, of course, I can go ahead and say trim, and then I say this one, this one, this one, and this one, and keep. Let's see how this works. That is good. And let's do the same here. You, and you, and you, and you, keep. Trimmed it all correctly, and then I do the same here. Try to work surface on surface and not too many surfaces at once. That seems always sometimes be a struggle with Alias, because in the previous recording I had trimming issues because I selected everything and then hit trim at once. And you see I did exactly the same things, or the same steps, just one trimming command after the next one, and it works. And now I could go ahead and say discard and discard, 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 discard. Okay. So with all this now finished, I could then go ahead again and go to the surface round tool and then pick the different edges. If Alias allows me to also click on that edge. See, sometimes you have to just scroll around and maybe look from a different angle at your object, and then you can select the different surfaces, and then it should all work. The nice part about the edge round tool is you see there is a small triangular icon. That means this surface here that is kind of like connecting this rounding, this rounding, and this rounding is made out of 3 surfaces. And if maybe I select this one, I get a different rounding style. So now I have 5 surfaces. And you could easily, even afterwards, click on those icons and then change the patch style, how Alias should create that edge for you. And then it's only repeating the same process on the other objects.